Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Merlin, Season 3, Episode 7, The Eye of the Phoenix. Episode in a nutshell is a brief summary of what happened in the episode. So the episode begins with Arthur performing a ritual in order to have his heir quest revealed to him. And he kneels overnight, and in the morning he says that his quest is to claim the trident of the Fisher King from the Perilous Lands, and begins preparations for going to the Perilous Lands to get the trident. Morgana, while out shopping with Gwen, is approached by Morgause, who gives her a bracelet that contains the Eye of a Phoenix, and the Eye of a Phoenix will drain the life force from anyone that it comes in contact with, and she is given this by Morgause in order to pass it on to Arthur, which she does do. As Arthur is heading out for his quest alone and unaided, Merlin sees the bracelet, and Arthur notices and says it was for Morgana, which of course sends off alarm bells in Merlin's mind. So he quickly goes to Gaius and they look up the bracelet, finding out what it is. So Merlin then decides that he has to follow Arthur. He sets off a little bit later than Arthur and goes to find Gawain, and Gawain agrees to go with him to help Arthur, though Gawain is going to help Merlin more so than Arthur. Anyways, Arthur, along the way, has the bracelet start sucking out his life energy and ends up having a lot of difficulties. When he's accosted by bandits, he has a difficult time defeating them. Once he gets through to the Perilous Land, he almost dies in quicksand because he loses his energy. He's almost killed by wyverns because he loses his energy. So on and so forth. Various different incidences. Merlin and Gawain follow along. There is a toll bridge with a seemingly mythical being who gives them advice on completing the quest as they cross the bridge into the Perilous Lands. And when they get there, obviously Gawain and Merlin catch up to Arthur very quickly because Arthur's journey has been slow due to his life being drained, and they finally catch up with him in the tower where he is passed out because of the life energy draining him. Merlin snatches the bracelet, which stops the life-draining effect, and they then are able to continue the quest. Meanwhile, because Morgana has had to cast a spell to activate the Eye of the Phoenix, Gwen, who has become suspicious of her, hides behind a screen and sees her using magic, which she then goes to Gaius to report, who confirms that Morgana is no longer who they thought she was, and she no longer wishes any of them well. Back on the quest, Merlin and Arthur and Gawain get separated by a trap door, and Merlin gets to have his time with the Fisher King, where the Fisher King reveals, who is still alive, reveals that he's been waiting for a very long time for the coming of a new age, that of the once and future king, and he has advised that the quest was not just Arthur's, but it was actually Merlin's quest as Emrys, and he is given waters from the Lake of Avalon in order to help guide his way in the future. And in exchange, he gives the Fisher King the Eye of the Phoenix, which finally allows him to have peace. And then Arthur and Gawain are able to break into the room just afterwards, and Arthur gets the trident, which wasn't really the real prize, but is his prize, and is able to take it back. As they return, Gawain goes back on his own travels, and Arthur swears Merlin to silence as the quest was meant to be completed alone and unaided. And Merlin is to pretend that he was picking herbs when they get back, and then of course there's a big celebration with Uther, Arthur, Morgana about the trident. Meanwhile, Gaius and Merlin in their own little room have their own little celebration about the waters of Avalon and what could it mean and what is it even. And that's the episode in a nutshell. So now that we've summarized the episode, we'll now rank the episode. We'll rank on our mostly objective ranking list, which uses set values to determine the score, followed by the personal ranking list, which is purely based on my personal opinion. And so our mostly objective rank values to start. We have our supporting character, single episode supporting character introductions. One is Grettir, who is like the bridge mythological being. I say mythological because he disappears, like he vanishes as soon as people are over the bridge. He's just like poof, gone. So he obviously has magic of some sort. So a mythological being of some sort. And he gives advice when Arthur crosses the bridge. He notes that Arthur is courage and he'll need strength and magic to complete the quest. And then later when Gawain and Merlin cross the bridge, he announces that strength and magic have arrived and that they need to, join up with courage, and then also lets Merlin know that the Fisher King has been waiting a long time and to give him what he wants, or not deny him what he wants. And they then cross the bridge. The other single episode supporting character to be introduced is, of course, the Fisher King himself. As I mentioned in the summary, it turns out he is still alive, and what he wishes for is an end to his time. And so that is when Merlin gives him the bracelet, which then allows him to finally find peace after all this time, once he receives the waters of Avalon. And he seems like a really sweet old man, so it's a good thing that he got his peace. But those are worth 2 points because there's 2 characters, and that's 1 point each. We then get our multi-season supporting character development, which is Gwen seeing Morgana use magic. Therefore, Morgana's magic is discovered by Gwen, and that's worth 3 points, bringing us up to 5. And then following that, we have our world building. So first bit of world building, of course, is the ritual to discover a quest and the fact that a male heir to the throne has to go on a quest to prove his manhood and that he is ready to one day be king, so on and so forth. And then the second bit of world building that I found was that wyverns exist, and Dragon Speech works on wyverns as Merlin is able to send them away with it. And I thought that was fun. So that was also worth 4 points, bringing us to 13. And then there was one minor negative. I wasn't even sure I was going to take points for it, but I did figure it was somewhat important. Basically, the quest rules that are very much stressed to us, the audience, are that it is to be completed alone and unaided. And then Merlin follows, and Arthur does not complete the quest alone and unaided, which breaks the rules of the quest, and then they decide to lie about it when they return to pretend that Arthur completed it alone and unaided, and honestly, it's a very small lie, small breaking of rules, but consistency is important, and so because they did break the rules and they are lying, which is negative messaging and behaviors, I took 2 points for it. That still leaves us with 11 though, making this a 10 out of 10 episode. And that brings our list so far to, okay, so when more than one episode has the same score, it's ranked in episode order on the mostly objective ranking. And that is why in first place we have the Tears of Uther Pendragon, second, the Eye of the Phoenix, third, Goblin's Gold, fourth, the Crystal Cave, fifth, the Changeling, sixth, the Castle of Furin, and then seventh so far is Gawain. Now my personal score for this one, again, this is a format of story that I actually really enjoy. I like that, they're on this quest. I like the comedic elements of the stressing that it is alone and unaided, and yet somehow still ends up with Merlin and Arthur going together because heaven forbid they not be joined at the hip. I thought that was great. There was a really nice moment between Gawain and Merlin where, Merlin asked him why he's doing this, and he says, same reason as you are, for a friend. And Merlin says Arthur's lucky to have them, and then Gawain says, not Arthur, basically saying he's doing it to help Merlin, his friend. And then Merlin says he would do the same for him, and I thought that was such a sweet little moment. We got the epic quest. We've got Arthur basically stumbling around way weaker than usual because of the bracelet draining him. He almost drowns in quicksand, almost gets killed by the wyverns, almost gets lost by the bandits, almost kill him. And it is kind of really funny and amusing because when he's swinging his sword around, in order to show that he's weak, he kind of like stumbles and almost looks like he's under the influence of like alcohol or medication or something of that nature, which is very funny. Well, okay, maybe not quite funny, but more amusing. Slightly below funny, but like definitely above neutral. It's amusing. But yeah, I liked the whole we're on an epic quest thing. I liked how the quest turned out. I also like that it foreshadows Arthur once again as the once and future king, that the Fisher King believes that time is now dawning, which is why he's okay with, ending his life and finding peace. Merlin is once again referred to as Emrys, somebody who has been waited for. And then we are given an object, the Waters of Avalon, which are implied that we are going to need in the future to show the way forward. So overall, I felt like it was a very good episode, and that is why I gave it a 9 out of 10. And that brings our personal ranking to in first, Goblin's Gold. This episode I put in second, The Eye of the Phoenix, then The Changeling, Tears of Uther Pendragon, The Crystal Cave, Gawain, and in last place for me we have The Castle of Fiorin. Bringing us now to the series ranking so far, and on our mostly objective ranking, we have Season 2 in first place with 70.83%, Season 1 in second with 69.23%, Season 3 so far has a score of 48 out of 110. Then on the personal side, Season 2 is also in first place with 70.83%, Season 1 in second with 66.92%, and Season 3 so far has a score of 50 out of a possible 110. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Merlin Season 3, Episode 7, The Eye of the Phoenix. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.